Welcome back to 3R Ballistics and today's episode of Outcast Science. Today's going to be a fun one because we're going to get to take you along on the journey with some of the stuff we do outside of YouTube. We do some material testing, terminal ballistics, external ballistics with slow motion camera work, with low development of projectiles and such. Typically these are privately funded or just individuals that don't want these put out on YouTube. A lot of designs, a lot of ideas that they think they might be able to take to market. So I completely understand. But this is a projectile that they're bringing back. They're emulating a projectile that was out there. This projectile they're emulating was called the THV, produced by France, which stood for Très Haute Vitesse. I'm sure I murdered that, but that roughly translates to very high speed. And it was a very high speed 9mm projectile that had challenges with stability and eventually evolutions to the design as seen in this drawing. So that's one of the tests we're doing with this experimental round. We're really looking at three things. We're going to make sure we can hit about 2,000 feet per second, that the bullet is stable in flight, and that we get a minimum of 12 inches of penetration into the ballistics shell. Now, typically we don't get to show these things, so enjoy what we kind of are figuring out. We're having to do the low development at the same time as figuring out if the bullet is going to be stable. But let's get to the range and see how it works. But stay to the end. At the end, I'm one of the few individuals that was able to test the original round, and I have some high-speed camera work. I have chronograph velocities, and we tested it into a level 3A Kevlar panel and retrieved the projectile. So I'll show you all that at the end, compare it to this new developing round, and we'll see how each one compares and if it's worth developing further or if we cut it off here. So like I said, out to the range. So welcome back to 3R Ballistics and our venture into Outcast Science. What we have today is we're going to be laddering up some experimental 9mm rounds. If you look at these, and I'll show a picture on the screen, they emulate another projectile that was out. These are different. The head of the projectile looks similar, but everything else is a little bit different. Today we're just getting velocities and seeing if they can fly stable. We are starting very low and hopefully going up to about 2,000 feet per second if everything works out good. We've got the chronograph going. We're going to start with HDPE and hit some other things to see how they work. And we'll be shooting all this out of the CZ Shadow 2. Okay, here we go. Oh my goodness, that was a baby. Didn't even record it. Starting out, we have stability, pretty good accuracy. Now we just need to increase the speed. Okay, unfortunately we did not get a chronograph reading. We are doing 7 grains. We are going to shoot some level 3A commercially rated soft body armor. We're gonna go center mass and see what happens. Here we go. (2,018 feet per second. Whoa!
Once again, we have great stability and accuracy with a little spark as it hits the vest. And I do want to mention, this is a very high quality level 3A body armor vest.
Okay, up here at the body armor, it put a heck of a hurting on this, but we caught it. We should be able to fish that out at some point. I can feel it in there. But just to compare it to something, we're going to go ahead and use a Civil Liberty 50 grain also projectile and see what that does. So to give it a comparison of something that's commercially available, we're going to be using the Liberty Ammunition Ultralight. It's a 50 grain projectile, which this is also. It should be going 2,000 feet per second, 2,040 feet per second. This last one went 2,018. And we will see what it does on level 3A soft body armor. Let me put this on safe, get my ears on. You good back there?
Yeah.
Okay, we will go bottom left. No, we'll go right above where we shot. Here we go. That might be in a little high. 2,237 feet per second. A lot faster.
So no excuse for this one. I just placed this high, and as you can see, slightly missed the panel.
Unfortunately, I wanted to go above this. I went way too high, and it didn't have enough material. It skirted out. It's in here. So let's shoot this again. Let's aim to the left of this, somewhere there. Okay, let's give that another shot. We're just gonna go to the left of it. Let's see if the velocities hold pretty true. Here we go. (2,261 feet per second, clear.
So as we could see, this is stable and accurate as well. I do want to mention on lower grade Kevlar panels, this ammunition does seem to go through, so that shows the quality of this panel.
We hit to the left of it. As you see here, it did not go through. We'll have to take these apart and see which one went further.
So both of these projectiles went about 95% into the plate. On a lesser plate, they would have probably gone through. Even though these bullet designs are different and weight retention is dramatically different, they both went roughly the same distance into the body armor.
But we're gonna go into the ballistic shell and see what it does. You ready? Okay, here we go. A little bit slower.
So great placement, great temporary wound cavity, and great penetration. But somehow it skirted out the bottom right of the ballistics shell.
Okay, so this is the wound track that it did. This one right here, and it came all the way out. Unfortunately, we had the polyethylene behind it, and it didn't have enough to go into it. It seemed to have bounced off of it, and we can't find it. We're gonna do another one for you guys and see if we can't capture the bullet. 7.8 grains, 9mm. We're gonna go back to the ballistic shell and see if we can capture this. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Here we go. We'll try to go right underneath it. Perfect shot. 2,062.9 feet per second. We came almost with the virtually same wound tract, but this time we caught it at the very, very end. Let me bring you guys in a little bit closer and show you. And there it is. We caught it right at the very end. Very stable in flight. Let me pull this out of here real quick, and there is the projectile. Back from testing, and I'm impressed. With all the latest monolithic, lightweight, high-speed, lead-free projectiles hitting the market, you know, a lot of those are either novelty rounds or just underperform when it comes to ballistic shell and just terminal performance. And this experimental round held its ground, if not exceeded in many, many factors. So we didn't even take the round to plus P pressures, and we were able to hit over 2,000 feet per second. I'm excited. I'm hoping that we can continue to develop something further along, maybe a different type of material. We were using copper. Maybe we can use brass, some type of alloy to further enhance this round. And also, the temporary wound tract in the ballistics shell was impressive. It almost gives you something like an Underwood extreme penetration where the fluid expands in the temporary wound cavity, but in the permanent tract, it's not quite as visible. Still, when you compare it to a traditional hollow point, here you can see the Hornady critical duty versus this experimental round. And in the temporary wound tract, I believe this experimental round has a temporary wound tract that seems to exceed the Hornady critical duty. Penetration is virtually the same, and overall performance seems very good. So let me know in the comments what you think can be done to improve this experimental round. Now, moving on to the OG THV round and the previous testing we conducted. Now, this is another test that had some restricted access to certain videos and certain data, but on with what we can show.
So for these, I'm just going to do a voiceover and explain how unique these rounds are and some of the data that I am allowed to share with. Starting with the slow-mo, we noticed that little bit of instability during flight, yet still accurate. Faster at 2148 feet per second, and good performance. Okay. A little shocked. So we had the 9mm. As you can see, this is level 3A, and that thing busted straight through that and into the polyethylene. It is right here. We'll try to dig that out and see what we can get. The first thing I noticed between the THV versus the experimental round is how much stronger the alloy is for the THV. It doesn't deform nearly as much as the experimental round, even though it was traveling a bit faster. Now, that's also what accounts for the THV, I think, coming apart. As you can see, the experimental round has more plasticity. Now let me know in the comments what you thought about this experimental round and where its design might shine. And until the next one.